Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good stuff. And we do have a lot of interesting things to talk about here today. Sonic the Hedgehog. It looks like it's going to do better than we thought on opening weekend. At least that's what they're predicting. Stephen Amell seems to have some frustrations over how they finished off his Arrow character on the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Going to talk a little bit about this. We're a day late, but we're going to talk a little bit about the series premiere of the new Star Trek show, Picard. We're going to talk, obviously, about this whole thing going on with the Obi-Wan series, that and a few things more. And joining me here today, actually in studio today, actually, I have two special guests here in studio today. It is actress extraordinaire, Miss Erin Cummings, and Joey Bishop.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here in the studio. As much as it's nice to, as nice it is as it is to sleep in an extra 30 minutes, I would much rather be here and get to look at your beautiful smiling face and to get to see Anne this morning as well.
Yeah, Anne was here before you left, which was really great. And she got to see Joey, which totally made her day, almost made her want to stay behind. And listen, guys, here's how today's show is going to go. The first part of the show, we're going to cover all the main topics. And then once you get into the second half of the show, we're going to take your live questions. Best way to get in a live question is if you look in the top of the description of this video, you're going to see a link there, a tip link. Go ahead and use that. That's the best way to send them in. But I've had a number of people asking me, because they weren't able to use that for whatever reason, to turn back on the Super Chat feature. So for now, we've got the Super Chat feature back on. So you can go and use that as well. And we'll get to those questions in the second half of the show. Now, before we get into our main topics today, one little thing I want to talk about here off the top. And that little thing off the top is this. We knew a little while ago that J.J. Abrams and his Bad Robot Productions had gone over to Warner Brothers to the tune of what I believe was like a $500 million deal. Now, there was a lot of speculation that J.J. and his team would be getting involved in the DC properties. I'll tell you what it sounds like they're going to be doing is not something that I'll admit I was expecting at all. According to reports coming out now, it looks like J.J. and Bad Robot are going to be looking at doing things for Justice League Dark. That's right, Justice League Dark. And you know what? Here's the interesting thing about that. I would have thought a long time ago that something like Justice League Dark would be something that they wouldn't pursue. It's just not something they would really do. But the reality is we now live in an era where we've had Swamp Thing, canceled after one episode, granted, but they did do Swamp Thing, where we're having series like Witcher, where we're having darker, even sometimes lesser known things being done. I mean, all kind of kicked off by the Guardians of the Galaxy thing, you know, an eclectic troupe of characters that not many people knew and all that kind of stuff. So really wouldn't have been all that long ago that I would have had my doubts that something like a Justice League, even when Guillermo del Toro was attached, I expressed, pessimism that they would actually go ahead and do it. Now, obviously, they never did do it with him, but apparently now it looks like they're going to be doing it with a J.J. Abrams at the helm. And I got to say, it looks kind of interesting. Erin, let me ask you. Mm-hmm. You get a creator like J.J. Abrams with all the weight that he's pulling right now. I mean, love or hate some of the stuff that he's creating. The stuff he's creating is making a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. What do you think about him instead of instantly jumping in? Because I think a lot of people thought maybe he might grab onto Superman, but going for something like a Justice League Dark, what do you make of that?
I love it. Clearly, the fans want more comic book. Everybody keeps saying, when is the comic book fatigue going to set in? When are we going to be finished? Well, I'll tell you when it's going to set in. It's going to set in when people stop paying money for it. And as long as it's making money, studios are going to continue to find a way to profit off of that. And so they're going to say, all right, well, do we want to have more of the same product, i.e., Superman, or do we want to find new and exciting characters that are going to be able to start a whole new franchise for us? I mean, look at Deadpool. Again, a name that, before the films, a lot of people weren't familiar with. And so to be able to, I hate to say resurrect, but essentially unearth some of these characters that are unknown to people outside of the fandom, all they see is dollar signs, and they're going to keep doing it. And, good for J.J. Abrams. He continues to bring in money because he continues to create content that people want to watch. Love him or hate him.
The interesting thing here, too, is that they're also saying it's not just film. They're saying he's going to be developing like Justice League Dark stuff for both film and television. So it's going to be interesting to see how they divide that up. Well, again, all the discussions are going to start up. Is it going to be shared cinematic universe between TV and movies? Will they do different things? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, though, guys, I want to know how you feel about this. Are you surprised? Or, are the events of the last couple of years with the different types of on the outlying edges becoming properties that they're making in movies and TV shows, does that make a Justice League Dark at this point seem kind of inevitable? What do you think? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, we're now going to move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, fill out the form with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here as a main topic on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Weston Magazi, who writes, "Hey, John, even though Blade Runner is a really celebrated film, I feel like it doesn't get enough love. 2049 was a brilliant masterpiece, and yet no one talks about the Blade Runner universe being amongst the best. Anyway, did you see that Denis Villeneuve has been talking about wanting to do another one? It would be perfect for him to finish the trilogy. What do you think about this?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And listen, I am one of those people, I'm one of those very, very rare people in the world that I actually didn't like the original Blade Runner. Everybody else does. Rob gets, Rob's face looks like I break his heart a little bit every time I mention I'm not really a big fan of the original. But even I, who doesn't have a huge appreciation for the original, even I loved Blade Runner 2049. I mean, they totally blew the marketing campaign on it, and it totally lost money. But besides that, I thought it was a brilliant, brilliant film. And if you're not excited about Dune yet, go and watch what he did with Blade Runner 2049, and then pretend like you're not excited for Dune. I just cannot wait to see what he does here. And yes, he has come out and said he'd be interested in it. Here's exactly what was said. This comes to us from Empire Magazine, who wrote, and this is Denis Villeneuve's quote saying, "It's such an interesting place, the Blade Runner world," he says, adding that he would be interested in another movie if it was unconnected from the first two. "The problem is having the word sequel. I think cinema needs original stories, but if you ask me if I'd like to revisit this universe in a different way, I can say yes. It would need to be a project on its own, something disconnected from both other movies, a detective noir story set in the future." Well, if it's a detective noir story, is it all that different? Anyway, "I wake up sometimes in the night dreaming about it." So obviously, this is something he's still pretty excited about. And again, even as somebody who wasn't a huge fan of the original film, I really did like 2049. But I'll tell you what, Aaron, I don't think anybody should get too excited about this.
Nope.
This ain't going to happen.
Nope.
No, the fact of the matter is, he made a bloody, brilliant film, and it still couldn't make any money. And it was brilliant. It was fabulous. So I just don't see the studios or any studios wanting to put up the type of coin it would take to revisit that incredible Roger Deakins-looking world in Blade Runner 2049, despite what Denis says. Like, even if Dune comes out and Dune becomes the next billion-dollar film, I still don't think a studio will want to go back to that. As fun as it sounds, and as much as I would be there to see it, I don't think it would actually happen. But you hear this. Number one, are you surprised to hear that he would like to go back to that world? And do you think maybe there is any chance that maybe it could happen?
Well, first things first, I want to point out the irony of him saying that his problem is with the word sequel, considering the fact that he's the one who did the sequel to Blade Runner.
Was indeed a
sequel. I just want to point that out to begin with. What I think they should do is keep with a tradition that they've already started, and instead, and yes, there should be another one, and it should come out in 2047, just like the sequel to the original, which placed the future as 2019, came out in 2017, only 2 years prior to what was considered the future in the original. So I think they should just keep with that tradition. And if you're saying, oh my gosh, that's so far away, let me just point out, we're as far away from 1980 as we are from 2050. And if that doesn't freak you out, you're clearly soulless. But also, I don't think that he should worry about that. I think he should absolutely do a noir, a detective film. If you make it Double Indemnity set in the future with maybe a Hitchcock blonde thrown in, I don't know. I was doing a little bit of a deep dive on the source material from this. And if you're not familiar with Philip K. Dick, sorry. If you're not familiar with the work of Philip Dick, who wrote the source material and also the source material for Minority Report and a million other incredible films, go look up this guy's life. He had a fascinating life, and especially towards the end, he said that he had this connection with God, and then he wrote some really trippy stuff, and he's just a fascinating character. And I would like to see Denis Villeneuve direct a project that's based around Philip Dick's life, because that is a movie right there. Somebody go write it. I will star in it. You're welcome. But Denis, do that. Don't those dreams that keep you up at night are dreams that need to be fulfilled.
Question here is, guys, what do you think about that? I think there's probably a lot of you guys that are like me that you would, if they announced another Blade Runner movie, I think a lot of film fans would be very, very excited about it, but I just don't see them doing it. Do you think that somebody would put up the money to have something like that made? I don't know. Or maybe you just want to see him continue on and do other new original things. I want to know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets sent in to us by Mike, who writes, "Hey, John. So tracking numbers for the upcoming Sonic movie are out, and they're lower than last year's Detective Pikachu, 41 to 47 million. Are these numbers what you expected? And if not, what are your thoughts? And thanks." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Mike. And just a quick point of clarification. There are a bunch of people saying that they're projecting Sonic to open between 41 and 47 million on opening weekend. That's actually not technically true. What the projections are saying right now, what their estimates are, is that it could make 41 to 47 over the long holiday weekend, not the weekend proper. Now remember, in the history books, it's still just measured by the weekend itself, not the extra holiday. So yes, they're projecting 41 to 47 million for the 4-day weekend. They're projecting right now anywhere between 30 to 35 million for the opening weekend itself. Now you're right. That does put what would be the upcoming Sonic movie well behind what Pikachu opened with. If it opens to 30 to 35 million, Pikachu opened to 54, yeah, there's a bit of a discrepancy there. But that's not the thing that stands out to me. The discrepancy between what Sonic would be and what Pikachu would be is not the discrepancy to me. The discrepancy, or the odd thing to me, the thing that is standing out to me is, I still don't think that Sonic can make 30 to 35 million on opening weekend. This is much more than I think. And I know it's natural for us as film fans. I do it, you do it. I know it's natural for us as film fans to want to compare it to something else, but this Sonic movie isn't Detective Pikachu. This Sonic movie isn't, going to be of the same budget as Detective Pikachu. It doesn't have the same following as Detective Pikachu. I think there's a little bit of inherent unfairness. Now, I think this whole thing sounds stupid. I think the entire movie sounds stupid, what have you, but I would have guessed that maybe 19 million opening. So, yeah, maybe it's not as much as Pikachu is, but who cares? I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the final opening numbers for this thing are, or what the final production numbers of this are, but I'm telling you, if it does come into 30 to 35 million opening weekend, and if it does open over the 4-day weekend at 41 to 47 and somewhere in there, I got to tell you what, I'd be impressed. I'd be impressed. Like, I'd love to sit here and tell you, yeah, I knew it looked stupid and it was going to bomb. But listen, I honestly don't think these numbers are bad. These numbers are pretty good. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't compare to Pikachu. Pikachu was a totally different thing. So listen, I'm still going to be surprised if it actually does make this much money over that weekend. But I got to say, man, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised to see that this many people are interested to go out and see it. Now, it may come in a little bit lower than that number. It might come in a little bit higher than that number. But listen, I got to say, I think this number's a win. So I don't know. You're hearing about this, Aaron. Are you surprised by these numbers? Do you think it would be higher? Did you think it would be lower? Where did you think it would come in?
I'll be honest. I'm a cynical little twat. I admit that. Oh, Joey just raised her head. What, Mom? However, I have to say, I'm really excited about this movie. And
really?
I don't know anything about the video game, anything. But I found myself having these feelings of something like joy creeping up and a smile on my face as I was watching the trailer. Not the first one, the second one. I know the first one was a complete bomb. The second one, when they went back and redid it, I first of all, I love Ben Schwartz, who voices Sonic. And if you don't know who Ben Schwartz is,
John Raffio
from Parks and Rec.
I love him.
Like my favorite guest star of any show ever. John Ralphio is just the best, and he really infuses that character. This is a guy who also, if you look up his credits, he does a ton of voiceover. So it's not like he's a live action actor who's trying out, his hand at animation. The animation is really what he does. It's his bread and butter. Additionally, I really like James Marsden as the supporting character. I feel, there was a huge list of massive names that were all being considered for that role. And I like the fact that James Marsden is in that role because he's a great, nice guy. And he doesn't take away from the main character of Sonic. And also, I get super annoyed by Jim Carrey. Like, there's only so much of him that I can take. He's kind of like your snarky aunt. It's like, okay, she's fun for 5 minutes, but after a while, you just gotta leave. And I like him in this. I really like how he embodies this character in a similar way as he did to the Grinch. I'm excited for it. I hope it does really well. And you know what? Everybody's looking for a movie to see on Valentine's weekend. Do we know other movies yet that are opening that weekend?
Off the top of my head.
Okay, I'd be curious to see what it's going up against. But if it doesn't have a lot of stiff competition, I'd say it could do very well.
Whenever I think of James Marsden, I think he's a wonderful. I like seeing him in just about everything, but it always reminds me about, even though I love a lot of the X-Men films, I always thought like the one thing that the X-Men films, even the best ones, always dropped the ball on was his Cyclops. I thought they just butchered his Cyclops, but
yeah, I always like it's just. I find his character just to be almost laughable. Yeah. Like, he's just sort of standing there with this weird Cyclops eye, and then every once in a while they'll give him a line, but otherwise he's just kind of like, hello, does anybody know I'm here?
Such a great character with such a great actor, such a missed opportunity. Anyway, guys, what do you think about these opening numbers, these projected opening numbers for Sonic? Do you think they'll come in higher? Do you think they come in lower? Do you think they're low? Are you like me or thinking, wow, actually, I think this looks really, like, these are good numbers. How do you feel about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted into us by Kyle Arking, who writes, "Hey, John, have you heard about Stephen Amell's recent frustrated comments about Crisis and how his death scene was shot without some of the actors? As a loyal Arrow fan since season 1, I feel like these last couple of episodes have been handled very poorly, especially the Arrow and the Canaries episode. What do you think?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And look, just full disclosure, as a longtime fan of the annual Arrow crossover event stuff that they do every year, I was not a fan of Crisis on Infinite Earths. I didn't think it was very good. It's the first time I didn't think they did it very well. And so Stephen Amell was on, I believe he was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. And they talked about his death scene and all that kind of stuff. And did he say something that made it sound like he was really frustrated? Yeah, this is what Stephen Amell had to say. He said, meanwhile, because it goes on to talk about how in his death scene, a lot of the actors weren't there and he was actually talking to reference tennis balls. And then they put in the actors later. He said, meanwhile, the effing Green Arrow was lying on a gurney trying to deliver his lines to something other than a fucking tennis ball. So there are lots of scenes where I'm acting and there just aren't other actors there. And that is just not an acceptable way of creating the best product from my perspective. All right. So clearly those are frustrated sounding words. And a lot of people are talking about, did you hear how upset Stephen Amell was by all this kind of stuff? And I get it, because you read that quote and it does sound like he's pretty upset. However, what isn't being addressed in a lot of this stuff is the fact that he also mentions in the piece itself and in the same interview that he doesn't blame anybody for it because a lot of it was scheduling. A lot of it, they said, was the fact that the other actors had to be on set at different places and they had over the call times the other day and it was just not practical to have them in there. Then he goes out of his way to say, look, it really wasn't anybody's fault. I think he was just frustrated that it happened. You know, like sometimes you can stub your toe. It's nobody's fault. You can't blame anybody. You're just mad that it happened, you know? And while I would like to sit here and jump on the poo-poo on Crisis on Infinite Earths bandwagon, the reality is this isn't as bad as just reading it makes it sound. He understood it was nobody's fault. It was just a situation of circumstances. He wished it could have been done better. He's not happy with the way that it turned out. But I think he expressed it in the right way. So I really don't think there's a lot here to talk about personally. I don't know, Aaron, you are in the Arrow universe. You were on Flash. You've been on many TV series and stuff like that. I'm sure there are times that you've not been able to shoot under the most ideal circumstances.
Absolutely.
You hear a comment like this. Can you relate with it? Do you see where he's coming from? What are your thoughts?
I would file this under things you probably should bitch to your friends about, but not on a national or a international platform. I really want, because my initial thing was, wow, he kind of sounds that's I had some thoughts about it. So I said, all right, let me read the entire interview. I don't know if maybe we read different articles, but I did not read anywhere where he was saying, hey, it's nobody's fault, these things happen, brushing it off. I felt like, in fact, reading the whole, like, more of the interview made it sound even worse, because I watched the death scene. And here's the thing, when I was working on The Flash, as Block, by the way, who apparently is still in the hospital recovering. So if you guys want to bring Block back, I'm okay with that. I remember being on set and them talking about Crisis and how challenging it is for Crisis. Not the actors talking about this. This is like production. And me thinking in my head, logistically, how do you combine all of these shows with different contracts? And then you have, Lucifer flying in from California and managing that. It is a logistical nightmare, having to figure out how to do all of these things simultaneously. And with that comes a certain amount of, you just got to let it go and just go, all right, fine, this is just what has to happen in order for us to make this possible. And there are many, many, many times that the lead actors, I've been working and it's the end of the night, and I know the lead actor has an entire day the next day, and they go, hey, Aaron, do you mind if this person leaves early and we can have someone else deliver lines? You just go, yeah, absolutely. I also get it that it's his death scene, so he wanted to have, but also he only referenced that the Flash and Canary were the ones that left early. But there were like 7 other actors in that scene. There were a lot of other people there. Maybe they released everybody. I don't know. But he also, speaking of James Marsden, here's James Marsden doing an entire film that he's starring in where he's talking to a tennis ball. Right. You talk to any of the cast of Avatar, or, talk to Chris Pratt about his experience in Jurassic World and Jurassic Park. Anyone who's worked on green screen, their entire job is acting with a tennis ball. So, Steve, sorry that you had to do one scene working with a tennis ball, but and also he does go on in that same interview to say that the only reason he came back for season 8 was for the money. So I'm like, dude, you just admitted the only reason. He said, I was out at season 7 and they came to me and they showed me the number if I did 10 more episodes, and it would be fiscally irresponsible. I'm quoting, direct quote. It would be fiscally irresponsible for me to turn down season 8. So yes,
it's a job.
I did it.
We all do it for it's a job.
Right. So if it's a job, then lay there, talk to your fucking tennis ball and collect your paycheck. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
But he's
that's
done
what
it
I'm
for
saying.
8 years, and this was the end of the Arrow character, the character that the whole reason the Arrow universe exists is because of that character, and they've never done it a certain way, and then all of a sudden for his death scene, I get it,
but here's the thing also, when he's dying, he is literally looking up and he's almost like he's not even really lucid in that moment, and he's saying these things. It's almost like, Auntie M, and you were there, and and you were there, and you were there. You don't need another actor to be able to say that. And after 7-8 seasons of doing that character, if all of that isn't in you and you have to have the actual person there, I feel like, fine, say it in your living room with your friends. Don't say that. And also, I do find it really interesting that right after he said these things, he had to end the interview because he had a panic attack. And it makes me kind of wonder, did you all of a sudden hear the things that were coming out of your mouth and realize that you weren't just hanging out with your buddy Mike Rosenbaum, you were actually saying it to a wide audience? I don't know. I felt like it was just, again, it was one of those things that it's just like, dude, those are the kind of comments that I feel make people look at actors and go, oh, you're so fucking privileged, like,
but I mean,
because also think about the problems for so many people had those actors stayed there for the extra half hour or hour. The amount of money.
He wasn't going, like, he did say in the interview, he did say it was circumstances, it was nobody's fault. Like, I understood that. But you got to understand too, like, Stephen Amell has always been very, let's say, open about when he's had, I remember when season 3 of Arrow was on, I had Stephen Amell, he came into the studio and we sat down, we were talking about season 3. And they had just announced, like they were just launching the Flash show. And Warner Brothers kind of trampled on the momentum of that news by then announcing Ezra Miller and all that kind of stuff. And I remember on the show, right in the heyday of Arrow, Stephen Amell was like, yeah, that wasn't a good move by Warner Brothers. He was talking about his bosses. He was talking openly about his frustrations. So it really wasn't a new thing for that. So the question I have for everybody else is, have you had a chance to see and read these comments? Do you see them a certain way? Do you see them another way? Like, what are your thoughts on it? I didn't make a lot out of it. Some other people, maybe like Aaron, maybe see a little bit more into it. But what do you guys think? I want to know. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets sent in to us by Greg T, who writes, I'm not what you'd call a big Star Trek fan or anything, but I've enjoyed the various stuff well enough, and I don't mind the current Discovery show. But wow, I loved Picard Episode 1. Just wondering if you've had a chance to see it yet or not, and what did you think about it? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, obviously I sat down and watched Picard. Now look, I am not nearly as much of a Star Trek fan as I'm more of a Star Wars guy, but I grew up watching Star Trek The Next Generation. My mom was a big fan of the original Star Trek series, so I grew up watching reruns of that as well. I really enjoy the Star Trek stuff. I really do. And I'm actually a big fan of Discovery. I actually really, really enjoy Discovery. So when they announced that they were bringing back Picard with Patrick Stewart, I was kind of excited about it. The first episode play, I had no idea what to expect. None. Zero idea what to expect from this show. I'll tell you what, I loved this episode. And I'm hearing some things, I'm hearing a lot of people loved it. Some people are a little bit mixed on it, I get. But to me, what they seemed to be going for was, everybody knows Jean-Luc Picard from Next Generation. Give it the DNA of a story from Next Generation. Give it the DNA of the TV show. And I felt watching this, and I mean this in all the best way, I felt like I was watching... It's almost like I watched All Good Things, the name of the final episode of Star Trek The Next Generation 20 years ago. I felt like just last week I watched All Good Things, and then this week I turned on the next episode, and it felt like it had that energy. It had that DNA. It felt like a story that you would tell in an episode of Next Generation, only obviously with much better visual effects. And I mean, listen, Patrick Stewart still carries all of the, I'll use a word that I hate, but gravitas. He still carries all that gravitas as Picard. It's really interesting to see and hear where he is right now and all this kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to jump up and down and say, oh, I liked it more than Witcher or Mandalorian. I'm not saying that. But considering this is a show that really could have gone either way in many different ways, I thought this was pretty good. And I like the dog too. I thought the dog was great. But anyway, I really thoroughly enjoyed the show. And all you can ask from a premiere is, did it make you look forward to watching the next episode? And I can't speak for anybody else, but for myself, I watched this thing, I'm like, damn, this is really good. I dug it, and I cannot wait to see the next episode. Aaron, I don't know if you or Tom had a chance to watch this. I don't know. I know Tom's a big geek, but I'm not sure if he's geek. If his geekdom kind of overflows into the Star Trek universe as well. But have you seen it? If not, what have you been thinking about it? What have you thought about the looks of it?
We haven't seen it yet. And yes, Tom is a big old nerd, but he's more like you. He's definitely more Star Wars. But we are looking for a weekly, now that Mandalorian is finished with its first season, as we we anxiously await season 2. We do need something to have as our weekly show, and I think it's going to be Picard. Your endorsement rings for me, so I will watch it. What I love is, what you're saying about the DNA of Next Generation, and I think that this might be, something that we see, just like we saw Joker as a offshoot of the Batman world and become its own living, breathing entity. And now we're seeing Picard as an offshoot of the Star Trek world being its own living, breathing thing. Maybe Denis Villeneuve,
Villanueva.
Denis Villeneuve. Can take something from that as well. And I think that we're going to be seeing, with the success of Joker and with the impending success of Picard, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that, where it's not necessarily sequels or reboots, but hey, let's take one element of this beloved world and tell a new story so that people still feel the familiar, but they get a deeper dive into characters. I would be more open to that than I would be to sequels and reboots.
And I got to tell you, some people were a little bit iffy on when, like, the opening scene, no spoilers, because this is the opening shot of the episode. The opening shot of the episode is tremendous. It's Picard and Commander Data sitting down playing, I believe they were playing a game. No, they were playing cards. Sitting down playing cards. And it was just so cool. And listen, all the makeup in the world wasn't doing a great job of showing behind the makeup that Brent Spinner has aged, just like all of us have aged. So he didn't look the same age under the makeup. But still, seeing Commander Data and Picard sitting there talking to each other.
Characters.
Oh my God, it was so nostalgic. It felt so cool.
Let me ask you this. I see that there are going to be a lot of Easter eggs scattered throughout the series, as there should be. For someone who is not a Star Trek fan, which is not me, because, I don't know if you know this, my first television role was prostitute number 1 in Star Trek Enterprise.
That's right. I forgot about that.
The Carpenter Street episode. Thank you, Brandon Braga. For people who are not Star Trek fans and are not familiar with the universe and don't even know who Data is, will they enjoy this?
That's a great question. That's a great question, because, I compare this to The Gentleman. Because, I was talking to some friends and I'm like, look, I loved The Gentleman. I love this movie. But if you're somebody who didn't enjoy Snatch or didn't enjoy Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and stuff like that, I don't know that it's going to be for you. And as somebody who does love those movies, it's difficult for me to put myself into the mindset of somebody who doesn't, and then look at The Gentleman and say, would I still have liked it? It's really hard for me to say. I feel the same way about Picard, because I do know all of the Next Generation. I did watch all those shows. I grew up watching those. So it's difficult
you get a
for me to
sense
say.
of nostalgia in addition to just enjoying the story.
Well, it's not just nostalgia. It's having that pre-existing, I already know this character. I know Jean-Luc Picard, all these things about him. But I know, because it's like this
familiarity.
Like seeing Data pop up, nostalgia.
Okay.
But seeing Picard, he can say lines in this movie that will have extra weight for me because I already know this person. I know this character.
Got it.
So they were able
You're not discovering him.
Yes, they don't have to introduce him again. You know what I mean?
Okay,
so
I understand.
I'm not saying somebody who wasn't familiar with the Next Generation can't enjoy Picard. I'm just saying I don't know, because I can't put myself in those shoes.
Well, probably in the same way that someone who is meeting Chewbacca for the first time doesn't go like that when he comes on screen, because they don't have that childlike wonder of him being a beloved character in the original films.
So I don't know. Question is, guys, have any of you guys had a chance to watch Picard yet? I really enjoyed it. Maybe some of you liked it. Maybe some of you didn't like it. Maybe some of you loved it. Whatever. What do you think about Aaron's question, which is really interesting? If you're somebody who wasn't familiar with Next Generation, is it still something you would enjoy? I think it's an interesting question. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down and out of the way, let's move on to our 5th and final main topic today. And our 5th and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Abrillo25. Abrillo25 writes, "Hey John, according to the Hollywood Reporter, the Obi-Wan series has been put on indefinite hold, and the writers are being sent home because Kathleen Kennedy doesn't like the scripts. Did Kennedy just lose someone again? We need to talk about this, so what are your thoughts?" All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And there were some rumors going around that the Obi-Wan series had been canceled. That is not the case. The series has not been canceled. What has happened, however, according to Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, everybody else, is that apparently there are issues with the script. They've halted. They're not going to go into production this year because I believe they were going to be, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they were going to go into production on this summer. They're now saying the production on this is going to happen sometime next year. Sometime in 2021 is when production will happen. They are also saying that they did indeed lose their writer. And I'm trying to remember Hussein Amini, who is the writer of that. Now, Hussein Amini, he's written a couple things, some good things, some not so good things. I mean, if we look over at his resume, I mean, he did The Snowman, which is one of the worst films in the last 10 years with Michael. That movie is just brutal. He did 47 Ronin with some good action, but not a good story. He did Snow White and the Huntsman, not so good. But he also wrote Drive. Nice. Which is bloody good. You're forgiven for everything else because you wrote Drive, because that movie was freaking brilliant. So apparently they've lost the writer. The writer's now departed. Chalk that another one up for a creative that Kathleen Kennedy has lost before the production actually goes into creation mode. All right. Now, Ewan McGregor then came out last night to say that all the reports are BS. The problem is, he says all the reports are BS, but nothing that he said actually contradicted anything that the Variety and the Hollywood Reporter are saying. They're saying there have been delays, they want to rework the script, all this kind of stuff, production's been delayed, and all that is true. Even according to Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, Ewan McGregor. But I think what McGregor was referring to, saying all the reports are BS, is that Obi-Wan series has been canceled and all that kind of stuff. So obviously none of that is true. The series was not canceled, it was not anything like that, but they are having to push off and move on again. This is both interesting and concerning to me on several levels. Interesting and concerning on several levels. The interesting part here is this. Hearing that the script is not where they want it to be. Because it was over 5 fucking months ago that Kathleen Kennedy at D23 told us all about Obi-Wan and announced that the scripts were done. The scripts were done. They were going to go into production in it mid-2020. Scripts are done. That was back in August of 2019. And now we're hearing that, oh, the scripts just aren't quite there yet. You've had 5 months between August and now to find out if your scripts were where you wanted them to be yet or not. And by the way, you had whatever the year-long period was before they announced the project that they had been working on it. You told everybody the scripts were done in August, and now there's problems? Now the problems enough? Now, Ewan McGregor was trying to downplay it, and that's exactly what a good soldier should do. He was there talking about, he was there to promote the Harley Quinn movie. He was obviously asked about this. He played the good soldier. He tried to downplay it, say, no, 90% of the script was great. If 90% of the script is great, you don't lose your writer. I'm just saying, if you really thought 90% of the script is great, no, the script is great, everything's good, we just want to tinker a little bit. Really? You don't need to push it off. You don't need to push production off 6 months and fire the writer just because you need to tinker a little bit. This was a script they said they had done back in August. And here's the concerning thing to me. This is the concerning thing to me. Now, I talked just yesterday, Aaron. Mm-hmm. I always try to be incredibly optimistic about Star Wars. Like, I can be unhappy. I've spoken recently about, I've been unhappy with the way that Kathleen Kennedy has just not seemed to be able to do the job of a studio head, of being able to properly manage and vet the people she's bringing on as creatives. She has lost more directors and writers in 5 films than Kevin Feige has over 20 plus films at Marvel. All right? In just a short window of time. But every time a new movie's coming, I'm putting on my Kathleen Kennedy hat. I'm putting on my Kathleen Kennedy shirt. I'm taking up my Kathleen Kennedy flag. I'm going, go Kathleen Kennedy. Make this thing awesome. I can't wait. Right? And then it comes, just like I cheer for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Go win, guys. And then they lose. I'm like, my God, my team sucks. But I'm going to cheer for them again next week. And it's just been this damn roller coaster that Kathleen Kennedy has put us on. Can we get through one bloody project on Star Wars without finding that there had to be a massive production delay, or they had to ditch the writers when they already said 5 months ago the scripts are done, or they had to move on from creative differences from yet another set of writers or another director or whatever? Can we get through one bloody film or one bloody project? Yeah, hey, Mandalorian, pretty drama-free, a Mandalorian, credit where it's due. But other than that, can we get through one thing? And here's the sad part for me, Aaron. This is the sad part for me. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. We, as Star Wars fans, and just media fans, everybody, just media fans, we have been conditioned now to just expect that a ball is going to be dropped. We just expect it now.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of when. When will the ball be dropped? We're supposed to have these films in 2020. We lost these directors, we lost those directors, and now we lose another writer. Oh, no, the scripts are done. We're going to start shooting. Oh, now we're not going to shoot till 2020. This is now the common, normal operating procedure for this three-ring circus. And it's frustrating. And now look, as we get close to whatever the next Star Wars movie is going to be, which we have no idea, as we get close to whenever this Obi-Wan series actually comes, which we have no idea when that will be, I'm going to, again, put on the hat, put on the shirt, bring up my flag, and I'm going to be all excited, and I'm going to cheer it on. But as a fan, it starts to become very frustrating when you see time and time and time and time again and again and again and again that she can't do this. Kathleen Kennedy, I've said this before, is one of the greatest producers in the history of Hollywood. Steven Spielberg called her the most talented producer he has ever worked with, and he's the greatest filmmaker of all time. And I was all for when they announced that she was taking over Lucas. She was handpicked by George Lucas himself. And I was all for it. When you looked at her track record, she was a great hire. A great hire. This is not the right job for her. This is, I've just come to the, now, 2 years ago, I started to get frustrating with all the director turnover because I've always said the main job, her main job is to make sure she gets the right people, vet them properly, make sure she's on the same page with them, and put the right creators and filmmakers in place to do. And what have we seen? Time and time and time and time again. Oh, we hired this person. Creative differences. Oh, now we've hired this person. Creative differences. And that happens once in a while. And we should expect it to happen once in a while in this business.
But at a certain point, you have to look at what the common denominator is.
It cannot be every day. It can't happen every single time. And I cannot help, look, and I, to this day, remain a Kathleen Kennedy fan. I'm a Tom Brady fan.
Why are you a Kathleen Kennedy fan?
Because she is one of the greatest producers of all time. I mean, just this, it's like Tom Brady. Here's an example. Tom Brady, right? Greatest quarterback of all time. What's that?
Is that Giselle's husband?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I know who that is.
Mr. Giselle, that's him.
Yes.
Giselle, I should say. Mr. Giselle. Greatest quarterback of all time.
Okay.
But if you put him at wide receiver, it's not going to work.
Right. It's not
his job.
That's
not his strength. That's not playing to his strengths. It's actually just accentuating his weaknesses. He is the greatest player in the history of the NFL, but don't put him at wide receiver. Get him back at quarterback where he's going to do his best work. And I feel like I've come to a place, and I've come to this place a while ago, but I feel like, man, Kathleen Kennedy, you're one of the best that's ever done it as a producer. This clearly isn't the role for you. You can't be happy. And you can't be somebody who's so accustomed to so much success. You can't be happy. Get back to being one of the best in the world at what you've ever done in one of the highest positions in Hollywood, and just go back to creating great all-time classic movies for everybody.
So go back to producing a singular
movies.
Produce a singular entity versus overseeing the entire world.
Because it's not working. Because this is just listen, and let me be clear about this. This Obi-Wan situation in a vacuum is actually not that big of a deal. It would be unfortunate. It would be, but you said 5 months ago the scripts were done. Well, okay, it's unfortunate. It's a little mark on the page, but whatever. In a vacuum, in the absence of all the other drama, this Obi-Wan thing is not that big of a deal. But when your face has been run over by a car and a puppy just, scratching your face, maybe not a big deal on its own, but after your face has been run over by a car, a puppy scratching your face can hurt a damn lot. And it's just that this Obi-Wan situation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not the first thing that's happened. It's happening as the next event in a long line of Keystone Cops, clowns coming in out of the car show that has been Lucasfilm over the last couple of years.
And that only started happening when Kathleen Kennedy took over.
Yes. Now, to be fair, it's not like Lucasfilm had done a whole hell of a lot in the previous decade.
So the production increased dramatically, and there was just a lot more to oversee.
And it just seemed like every single project, there has been something. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that this Obi-Wan thing, hey, listen, delays happen, writers come and go, this happens. But when it's the next piece of the puzzle of it happening again and again and again and again, it gets frustrating. Anyway, I've gone on about this enough. As somebody who, from a little bit more of an objective perspective, who's not as overly emotionally butthurt invested in this like somebody like me is, how do you look at this whole situation?
You know, one of the things that was coming to mind when you were talking is this this saying, never sit front row at the ballet. And the reason for that is that when you sit front row at the ballet, you see the sweat. You can see the grimace. You see the tape wrapped around the ankles. You see you see the reality of what it means to be a ballerina. And when you sit further back, you can remain blissfully ignorant to the realities of that. And, you know, I think that one of the things that is so exciting about having access to all of the information of like, okay, they've greenlit the script. Okay, they found a director. Okay, they're on production. Okay, catering has been set up. Okay, somebody's going to the bathroom. Like, we know minute by minute everything that's happening with these projects. But then, like, we have almost too much access. Whereas if we can go back to a time where we're just like, hey, when is the new Star Wars film coming out? Oh, it's coming out in 2 weeks? Okay, great, let's all go. But that's not the case. We know the minute by minute comings and goings of every project, and then therefore we are subject to the frustrations of the inevitable delays and issues and creative challenges. And, you know, I would be very curious to hear. I mean, clearly they do a good job of keeping a tight lip, you know, loose lips sink ships. And so the people, you know, good for Ewan McGregor, maybe his friend Stephen Amell could take a cue from that. You know, good for him for being able to be political and saying, hey, everything's great. You know, yeah, I love riding on the Titanic, everything, you know. But I think, you know, clearly you're right. I mean, if all of a sudden these things keep happening, you have to look at the common denominator. And I'm sure she probably is much happier in a producer position. I mean, I know friends that have been casting directors and love casting because they get to work with actors, and they have been offered roles as like head of casting at blah, blah, blah studio. And they're like, I don't want that job. Yeah, it's going to be guaranteed health insurance. Yeah, it's going to be a bigger paycheck, but I won't get to work with actors. I'll have to go to meetings all the time. I'll be the person in charge of everybody. And it's more of a bureaucracy, is that the word? Than it is the actual thing that I love doing. And I feel like Kathleen Kennedy is probably someone that loves getting her hands dirty and being down in the trenches and doing the work. And sometimes, you know, you get too high and you're I don't know. But I suggest maybe for anyone that's getting as emotional about it, maybe sit in the back row. I mean, you obviously can't because of your profession.
It's
You're not allowed to. You have to know the comings and goings.
My season tickets are in the front row, so I'm kind of
exactly. Good therapy and good medication. I highly recommend.
Good medication. and let me point something out here too. All of my frustration. You notice I'm not talking at all about the quality of the movies.
Oh yeah.
Like, because to me, look, making good movies, making quality TV shows, it's like one of the hardest things in the world to do. There are movies and shows that she has made that I've really enjoyed since her tenure as overseeing Lucasfilm. I love The Force Awakens. I love Rogue One. I really love Mandalorian. There are things that have happened on her watch that I'm not such a big fan of. The most recent Rise of Skywalker. I'm not a fan of The Rise of Skywalker. But see, to me, it's not about the issue about the quality of the films so much as it is about, are you fostering an environment? Are you creating a space where good things can happen, or are you fostering an environment of chaos? Because you can still make great stuff in an environment of chaos, but it becomes more challenging.
Well,
and it becomes harder.
Look at Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. I mean,
look at CBS.
Yep,
look with Les Moonves. It all comes from the top, and just because, and the more that you are pumping out good quality material, the more that people tend to turn a blind eye to.
Not that we're trying to compare Kathleen Kennedy to Harvey Weinstein.
Sorry. That was a terrible. It was a terrible analogy. I just
to be clear.
Yeah, sorry. That was a terrible analogy. I did not mean to compare this to at all. Thank you for calling me on that, John. Thank you. I just mean that whoever is in charge does set the tone for the culture of a company, and the product of that company is not always a good measure of how the culture is doing.
Right. So to me, the biggest things are she has exhibited a failure to do the most important job, which is to get the right people in the right places the first time, properly vet them, make sure you're 100% on the same page with them, make sure all expectations are understood. That's the number one job. That has been a disaster. She also failed to make sure going into the new trilogy that they had a game plan. There was clearly no game plan. They went, to use a football analogy, they went down by down. They didn't go half by half. They went down by down. They kind of made it up as they went along. This, again, just screams to me that she is truly one of the most gifted producers in the history of this game, but this was not.
So
this
go
is not
produce.
the spot. Yeah, so go produce. I don't know, guys. Listen, maybe again, I'm just being self-admittedly, because I'm a Star Wars fan, overly butthurt about this. That's very strongly a possibility. But question is, how do you feel about this and the way the whole Obi-Wan situation happens? Again, I don't think you can look at this Obi-Wan situation in a vacuum. It's not. It's part of a pattern. A pattern that gets a little bit frustrating. But anyway, how do you guys feel about that? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we're going to move into the live question part of the show, and I'm sure some more of you guys are going to want to bring up this situation as well. Now, of course, two different ways you can do it. Use the tip link that's in the top line of the description of this video, or you can use the super chat, either way. And we're going to get right into those in just a minute, but first, Aaron and I are going to do what we always do on the show. We're going to take a short break, rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill the drinks, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom yourself, guys. So if you will hang tight with us for just a couple of minutes, don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Okay, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there. So now, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in to the live questions. We're going to get things started off here with Juan Espinoza, who writes, "Hi, John. Once again, thank you for your hard work and dedication to this program. You're such a passionate and loving guy. I've been a follower of you since 2012. ND probably meant and you're never not been such an amazing show host and content curator. God bless you. Much love." Thank you so much. It's always nice when somebody wants to send in somebody nice. Thank you so much, Juan. Believe me, the privilege is all mine. Thank you so much for that. And I appreciate that, dude, very, very much. Hope you have a great day, man. All right. Next up, Willow writes, "Look on the bright side. The Leafs at least won 13 Stanley Cups before their decline. The Canucks still have none Stanley Cups. The last two rides in Vancouver were both caused by them getting into the finals and losing in Game 7. Hey, listen, I get it, Willow. I do. But as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, they have never even been to the finals the entire time my feet have walked the earth. The entire time I've been alive, they've never even been to the finals. Whereas, I mean, that's great that they won all those Stanley Cups before. That was before I was even born. So that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. At least the Canucks have gone to the finals."
Is the Leafs versus the Leaves a Canadian thing?
No, it's the Leafs. Leaffs. Yes, Leafs.
Have I been spelling
No. You're spelling Leaves is spelled with the V, but the Toronto Maple Leafs is Leafs.
Okay. Now I can't even say the word because it's weird now.
It's difficult. All right. Baby Jabba is better than Baby Yoda writes, "Hey, John, do you think a Vader solo film taking place right after the Rise of Skywalker or Revenge of the Sith would work? He could be struggling with his new prison, pain, and anger and make for an emotional film experience. What are your thoughts?" I don't like the idea. Listen, anything, I keep saying this all the time, anything can work. Anything can work. Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone can work. A Lego movie, who would have thought that? Can work. So anything can work. I'm just so sick and tired of going backwards in the storytelling. Like, if you're going to go backwards, go centuries backwards so we're not just visiting and playing with the exact same characters again. So, I mean, listen, the possibility exists that it could work. Not something I'd be really excited about, to be honest with you. But then again, I say that. But if it were to come out, I'd be there opening day, obviously. All right, Colby Harris writes, "I keep hearing rumors that the Obi-Wan series is having trouble. I didn't believe it at first because we have this covered report, and now the Hollywood Reporter is saying it's on hold." Well, I mean, there were reports going around that saying it was canceled. That it had been canceled. That is clearly not the case, and that is clearly not true. However, obviously, instead of just going into everything we already just talked about, obviously they've delayed it. I highly, highly doubt. It's just you don't delay production 6 months when you said it was done 5 months ago that, oh, it's 90% there. We love it. It's fantastic. We just need to tinker a little bit. No, I don't buy that for a second. But the reports of its demise were greatly exaggerated. I believe this is going to happen. The show's going to happen. And it's clearly Deborah Chow. By the way, Aaron, that's the thing I didn't bring up earlier. And I really should have. And that's Deborah Chow, who is going to be directing the Obi-Wan series. She has a long, incredibly impressive television resume of directing incredible A-list top shelf shows. She did such a great job on Mandalorian.
I was going to say,
did the best episodes of The Mandalorian. I want to know, and we may never know, I want to know if Deborah Chow went to Kathleen Kennedy and said, "I'm not happy with this script." If I found that out, that Deborah Chow went to them and said, "I'm not happy with this script," and they were like, "You're Deborah Chow. If you're not happy with the script, then we're going to back off." That would probably change the narrative here a bit. And I meant to say that earlier. That would probably change them because it's Deborah Chow.
Absolutely.
I have a hard time believing that it took Deborah Chow 5 months to go.
I was going to say, when did Deborah Chow get brought onto the project?
Yeah. She was announced like ages ago. She was announced months and months and months and months ago.
Okay, so if she had a problem with the script, I feel like she would have said so before they said in August, "Oh, the scripts are done. Everything's great."
Yeah, I'm just saying that if I found out it was Deborah Chow that said she had an issue with it, then I'm looking at that differently. I'm going, then you know what? You're Deborah Chow, and if you think it's not ready to go, then it's not ready to go. I just have a hard time believing that's the case because Deborah Chow's been sitting on these scripts for months and months and months and months. And why would just this be coming up now?
Well, and also, like you said, Obi-Wan is not happening in a vacuum. This is the sort of standard of procedure at this point of we're announcing a project. Everybody's excited about this project. Oop, there's creative differences. The project's on hold. Oop, there's creative differences. We're having to drop the writer. Oop, creative. As you said, this is not an isolated incident. And that is what makes it even more frustrating
and concerning. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Colby. All right, I value your opinion rights. Thank you for always providing such a truly incredible show. Thank you so much. It's always nice when people just want to write in and say something nice. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for being here and being a part of the show. All right, Jim Sandelin writes, John, what are your thoughts on the Obi-Wan series being put on hold? Obviously, we just spoke about that. Looking for new writers and decreasing the episodes from 6 to 4. Keep up the great work. It should be pointed out that none of that stuff about the show's been canceled, the show's being reduced to 4 episodes, none of that has been verified by anybody. So let's just deal with what the facts are that are in front of us. They've gotten rid of the writer, or they've parted ways with the writer. They've delayed production. It's not going to go into production until at least 2021. There are some whispers going around that it might still meet what their original idea of a release date was, but we'll have to see if that turns out to be true or not. But the harsher things like, oh, the series is being canceled, that has not been verified at all. That's actually been kind of put down.
Who was the writer that was let go?
Oh, we spoke about Hosen.
Right.
And the guy who wrote Drive.
Oh, right. Yeah, we had a whole conversation. But had he done any other Star Wars world projects?
As far as I know, no.
Well, maybe that's part of the problem. Instead of giving, I hate to say this, but keep it more in-house. When you get the writer from The Mandalorian to come in and write the Obi-Wan series, work with someone that's tried and true and bring writers up through the writer's room of the Star Wars world. There's a reason why people have writers deals at ABC because they know how to write for ABC. They have writers deals at CBS. They're CBS writers and they worked in CBS writers' rooms and they understand the culture and the tone. Why don't you create that culture within Star Wars so that you automatically have writers who understand the world and then you don't have to reinvent the wheel and explain this world to a writer who is not a new writer, but they're new to this world.
It could be that they were doing that and that bringing him into the system, this was a new talent they were going to bring into that system and
by giving him an entire show.
And well, you remember the
pretty
show,
big deal.
The show was probably going to be 6 to 8 episodes, probably. You couldn't get the Mandalorian people because they're doing Mandalorian season 2, and you couldn't get. So I don't know. It could be a fact that they were just starting again.
Well,
he's got Drive on his resume.
Wait, hold on. You can't get the Mandalorian people because they're doing
Well, John Favreau, who's also, running, he's the showrunner of Mandalorian, so I don't think...
Hi, I have 2 words for you. Shonda Rhimes. Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder, Scandal. She was...
but she's so hands-off on a lot of her properties, whereas Favreau is on set every day and all that kind of stuff.
Right, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, take some of the writers from The Mandalorian. Is he writing every episode by himself? I'm sure he has a staff of writers.
I think he's credited, except for one episode, I think he's credited as the writer for every episode. I could be mistaken about that.
Yeah,
but I think
in the same way that Matt Weiner was credited for writing every episode of Mad Men. Because...
But remember, this is such a new thing. They don't have a stable of writers that they've worked with for 20 or 30 years at this point.
Get one.
Maybe they were trying to do that.
Right. I say, here, Kathleen, call me. Let's chat. Because, girl, I want you to be happy.
That's the lesson here.
Kathleen, you and I, we should have lunch. We'll sit down. We'll hash this out. We'll brainstorm together. You know how to do your job. I'm just going to be there to plant a few questions and maybe, plant some seeds of how we can help grow the Star. Could you imagine if all of a sudden I was having lunch with Kathleen Kennedy and you were like, you've never even fucking seen Star Wars. Why are you talking to Kathleen Kennedy?
I would probably have a little bit of conniption on that. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Jim. All right. Next up, Murray Reich writes, do you guys like watching the Pro Bowl? I find it boring, to be frank. First of all, let me just say, I love the NFL. I love watching NFL football. I never watch the Pro Bowl. No, I'm completely with you on that, Marie. Never watch the Pro Bowl.
I watch the Puppy Bowl, though.
And watches the Puppy Bowl, too. Supergirl writes, I love jobbing Superman. He sucks. Haha. You know what? It brings up something that I've been thinking about.
Okay.
Have you watched Have you watched Harley Quinn yet? The show, the new animated show.
No, I haven't.
I'm not surprised. It's on the DC streaming service.
Is that something I have to subscribe to?
Yeah. So anyway, Lake Bell, the girl who was in Big Bang Theory. I think she's the main
Kaylee
voice.
Cuoco?
Yes, she's the voice of Harley Quinn.
Okay.
Lake Bell is the voice of Poison Ivy. Here's the thing, and this thought just struck me the other day. For those of you who watched Harley Quinn, right? This is the difference between Harley Quinn and the Supergirl show. Harley Quinn, first of all, on Supergirl, they have no idea how to put Supergirl over except to bring in Superman and have her outshine Superman every single day. Yeah. It's incredibly frustrating. You do not job Superman, you do not job Wonder Woman, and you do not job Batman, but they do it constantly. And then I'm watching Harley Quinn, and it struck me a few episodes in. They have had no problem putting Harley Quinn over and making everybody love Harley Quinn without the need to job without the need to job Batman. Batman's in the show and they never job him, and they have no problem putting Harley Quinn over really, really well. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking at that and thinking, if this little animated show can do this right, why can't a live action show do this right? You do not job Superman, you do not job Wonder Woman, you do not job Batman. That is the Holy Trinity. You can job any other characters you want. You do not job those characters. And Harley Quinn was able to have Batman and do it great. Why can't this live action show?
Again, I would be really curious to see the makeup of the writer's room. The writer's room of the Harley Quinn show, what the demographic, what the base is there, and the base of Supergirl's writer's room. I'd be very curious.
It would be interesting to see. All right. Murray Reich writes, enjoyed the latest Best Movie, Worst Movie episode. Thank you so much. For those who don't know, that's the podcast that me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and Olympic gold medalist Cody Miller, who's getting ready for the next Olympics.
Who's so handsome.
And we just had, he's a good looking dude. We just put up episode 1 of season 2. I was surprised when you mentioned Hellboy was your worst, because I thought Pet Sematary was for a while. Believe me, it was a really close pick for me between Pet Sematary and Hellboy. Anyways, Cody Miller was great as always. Maybe one day he can cameo on the John Campea Show. He has great knowledge of movies. I know he's busy. Yeah, you know what? It's funny because me and Cody were talking about, because him and his wife came and stayed with me and Ann this past week. And once the next Olympics are done, and the Olympics are in July and August, I believe, once the next Olympics are done, he'll have more free time. Because right now, everything is about getting ready for the Olympics.
How much did he eat while he was here? Because elite athletes eat a lot
because
of food.
They burn so many calories.
Yeah.
Their bodies are machines.
I mean, I just want to watch that guy eat breakfast.
Oh, he can eat a lot. He can put away a lot. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think of it just looking at him.
Of course, but I mean, look at Michael
Phelps.
Yeah, I loved reading about the stuff. So did he eat? He ate a lot while he was here.
Oh yeah. We ate out a lot too. Although he made healthier choices of what he was eating than what the rest of us did, but still ate a lot of food. Yeah. He ate a lot of food. Okay. Let's see here. David Michael writes, yesterday I saw the TNT network advertising a bunch of Marvel movies will air over the weekend. I'm sure TNT paid Disney a fair amount to show their movies on TNT's network. With Netflix stating they are not interested in ads on their platform, do you think Netflix would allow some of their original movies to air on these other networks? Some of their content would need to be censored. Not sure what that means.
Censored.
Oh, censored. Yeah, there you go. Censored. But could introduce a new revenue stream for Netflix. Absolutely not. Listen, the whole point, the reason Netflix makes their original shows is to get people to sign up to their service. Mm-hmm. That this is the only place you can watch our content. That's why they make them. That's why they have a $17 billion production budget this year. $17 billion they're going to put into original programming. And the reason they do that is so that the only home it'll have is on Netflix, to get people who are subscribers to stay subscribers, and to get new people who aren't subscribers to become new subscribers. You kind of undermine the whole purpose of that if you suddenly start letting other networks air that show. Right. Now, you might say, well, John, CBS All Access is a streaming service and they let Discovery and Picard play on other networks in different countries. Well, that's because CBS All Access isn't in those countries. Right. And if they want the word to get out about it, they got to give territorial licensing deals. That's not really an issue with Netflix. So I don't see that happening. Is there any way? Do you see any upside to them doing something like that?
No. Absolutely not.
I just don't make any sense. I mean, you're right, because they are $15 billion in debt. Netflix is $15 billion in debt. Not a bad idea to look for new revenue streams, but that would be undermining their business model, so I don't see them doing that. Okay, next up, BC33 writes, 2019 best movie moments. 1917, Rush into No Man's Land, Jojo Rabbit, the shoe scene. Richard Jewell, Mama Jewell, press conference, Joker, the talk show, Marriage Story, the fight, The Irishman, De Niro's final scene, Leave the Door Cracked. That was one of my favorite moments. Listen, we've talked a lot about 1917. We've talked a lot, obviously, about my favorite movie of the year, Jojo Rabbit. We haven't talked a lot about the fight scene in Marriage Story. It is one of the most powerful, riveting, real feeling, awkwardly relatable.
So relatable.
Scenes in a movie this year. I mean, it is, and if anybody who hasn't seen Marriage Story and you're wondering, why is Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson getting all these awards? All you have to do, if you can find it, is watch the fight scene. And no, there's no lightsabers or kung fu, just the fight scene. And if you want to see why everybody's talking about this movie, I mean, it is a remarkable scene. Like I definitely put that up there amongst one of the best of the year. Yeah,
it was great. Another scene in that film that like Tom and I actually had to laugh about. He hasn't watched it yet. He's like, I can't. He wouldn't watch it with me. He was like, I feel like that's just, you know, a recipe for disaster, which I wish that he had, because I think it's a great movie and so relatable on so many levels. But the scene when it's very early in the movie and they're in the counselor's office and the counselor wants them to read their letters and Scarlett just gets up and she's like, well, if you guys are just going to sit here and suck each other's dicks, I'm going to get out, I'm going to leave. And Tom goes, that's totally something that you would do in a marriage therapist's office. I was like, right? Isn't it though? And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why the movie, which was so beautifully simple in so many ways, and really goes to show you that and I say it on the show all the time, it all comes down to story. It doesn't matter what's exploding. It doesn't matter who's attached. If you have a good story and a good script, the movie can do beautiful things.
Sky's the limit.
I also think that the scene at the end of Queen and Slim when they're holding hands.
Don't give too much away. Yeah.
Which is when they hold hands.
Yes, when they hold hands. Yep.
That is a powerful scene. And if you haven't seen Queen and Slim, go see it.
Yeah, Queen and Slim was I mean, I knew it looked good. It was one of those movies I was watching. I was like, wow, I was surprised how good that was.
Yeah.
All right, Adam Beavers writes, part 1 of 2. Hey guys, I grew up as a kid in the 80s and I love shows like Wonder Years, Cosby Show, and TGIF, but got the most excited about car helicopter shows, Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, A-Team, Hardcastle McCormick. Oh, that's a show I've not heard in reference in a long time.
Airwolf.
And Airwolf.
Oh my God.
By the way,
Airwolf.
guys, hands down, greatest TV theme of all time. It's the greatest. Jan Michael Vincent, Ernest Borgnine. Airwolf. I mean, I was so young when that was up, but I mean, Airwolf. Anyway, out of these shows, which do you think could be a successful reboot in today's world, and which one would you like to see rebooted, if any?
Not the Cosby Show.
Not the Cosby Show, no. My vote is Airwolf. Still holds up today. Hope everyone has a good weekend. You know what? It's so funny you mentioned that, Adam, because I was having a discussion with a buddy of mine not too awful long ago, maybe last year, about Airwolf.
Really?
And we were talking about, could you do Airwolf today? Could you do Airwolf today?
Remind me the premise of Airwolf. So obviously, he's in a helicopter.
It's this big advanced military tech, but he got it. He got his hands on it, and he keeps it hidden away, and now he goes out and rights wrongs for...
so he's like a vigilante.
It's A-Team with a helicopter.
Okay.
Only the world's most advanced helicopter.
I feel like A-Team had a helicopter as well.
No, they didn't. But from time to time, Howling Mad Murdoch would steal a helicopter.
Right.
They had a van They had Mr. T's
That was
van.
that was their thing. But they did occasionally go in a helicopter.
Okay, well, yeah, because they always had to fly.
It's not like Knight Rider,
they always
where he only had kids.
Drug Mr. T because he was afraid to fly. Not putting me on a plane, Mr. T would say. And then they're gonna drug him some way.
Mr. T, good cancer survivor. See, I think I'm gonna take over.
That's my good Canadian kid. Yours is good cancer
survivor. Mm-hmm.
The reason me and my buddy thought, here's why I don't think it would work today.
Okay.
Technology today is different than it was 25 years ago.
Sure.
There are things in Airwolf that seem so futuristic that today really isn't. There was, by the way, around the same, earlier than when Airwolf was out, there was a movie out with Roy Schneider called Blue Thunder. That was about this world's most advanced helicopter. But all the stuff that was on that helicopter is a common thing today.
Right.
And the other thing is, it's kind of like the one thing about Batman. If people want to know where the Batcave was, the way surveillance works today, there's no way Batman can just drive into the woods and disappear into a waterfall. No. They would find him. Easily. I mean, there's just no way he could not be tracked. There's no way they couldn't figure out where he was. And a lot of the so I don't think Airwolf would. Looking over your list, though, we saw them try to do Dukes of Hazzard again in the movies, at any rate.
And they tried Knight Rider again.
They tried, and apparently they're even going to try that again. It didn't quite work.
Well, we have self-driving cars now.
Yes, we do.
So I feel like that's going to add a different element to it. It's like Knight Rider at the time was unthinkable, a car that can drive itself, and now we have them. They're all over the roads. Whether you know it or not, they're driving right next to you.
It's difficult to say which one of those would work right now. You know, one I used to like, it was around the same time as A-Team, was the two brothers.
Balky and
no, those are the cousins.
Perfect Neighbors.
No,
Perfect Strangers.
It was the same. It was in line with like A-Team and Knight Rider. They were two brothers and they were private detectives. One guy went on to be Major Dad.
Okay.
It wasn't Smith and Smith. It was something and something. It was the same name. They were the two brothers, and I cannot remember it. And unfortunately, there's like a 30-second delay, so I can't even ask the chat board what it was. But anyway, that one was, maybe that would do that one. Two brothers. Look, they just did Magnum P.I., and it's having a pretty successful run. So maybe shows like that.
MacGyver, is MacGyver still on the air?
I don't know if
Hawaii Five-O. That's the thing. Is like
Simon and Simon.
Simon.
Jenna Gray in the chat board just said Simon and Simon. Thank you, Jenna Gray. Yes, Simon and Simon.
What did you just think it was?
I said at first I said Smith and Smith, but that was
Simon
a
and
married
Simon,
Canadian comedy couple. Okay, anyway, we got to keep moving on here. All right, Murray Reich writes, The Gentleman, which I love. The Gentleman is the first fresh Rotten Tomato rating film for McConaughey in a very long time. Before then, he's had a very bad track record like Beach Bum, Serenity, White Boy Rick, Dark Tower, Gold. I didn't mind White Boy Rick, to be honest with you. Gold and Free State of Jones. Free State of Jones should have been like a Best Picture contender, was not handled right. Last good one was Interstellar, not including animated. And here's the funny thing. Matthew McConaughey is a great case study of you can be a really good actor. And if you're in the wrong movies, there's only so much a good performance can overcome. Because now you see him in something like this. He's great in The Gentleman. I loved him in The Gentleman. And he was real. I hated Free State of Jones. He was really good in it. I didn't hate Dark Tower. I actually thought it was pretty good in Dark Tower, but I hated Serenity. Not the Firefly Serenity, different Serenity, the one he did with Anne Hathaway. But his performance was really good. I mean, you can be a great actor and just be in bad things.
Sure.
So, but it was really, listen, I really like him in The Gentleman. Again, guys, I can't recommend it enough. If you hated Snatch and Lock, Stock, you won't like it. That's fine. But if you even remotely like those, I think you got to go check these out. All right. Brandon Nope. Any relation to Leslie? Writes, going to a 1917/Just Mercy double feature. That is a damn good double feature right there. That's a good double feature. Gonna walk out with all the feels. All right, Big Ben writes, I don't know who had more drama lately, Kathleen Kennedy or Antonio Brown. Of course, Antonio Brown got arrested. He submitted himself to police yesterday. Burglary. Listen, I was talking about him on my show yesterday.
This is a football player.
This is the football player.
Who does he play for?
Nobody for the last year. I mean, he was on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they traded him to the Raiders. He never played a single game. He signed with the New England Patriots. He was there for one game, then they released him. He is one of the most gifted football players in the world, but he just keeps getting in his own way. And so I hope he can turn things around. All right. Nosferatu writes, okay, who brought the dog? I think that was probably that was sent in 12 hours ago, so that was probably a response to the fact that we kept hearing Chris Carr's dog barking on yesterday's show. Ari A writes, my favorite moments: 1, he reveals his name to Sylvia Trench. 2, Drax says, you missed it. He replies, did I? And the sniper falls down from the tree. 3, he rolls Kamala Khan's dice and says, double sixes. Without looking at them, Robert, what are yours? I'll be honest. Well, first of all, obviously, Robert's not here today. I don't know what that's a reference to.
I have no idea.
Maybe somebody will tell me later, and I'll go,
Kamal
oh,
Khan.
God, obviously.
Is the name Kamal Khan ringing a bell?
Yes, it does, but I don't know what the attachment to the rest of it is. I'm sure I'll kick myself later when I realize it. Turd Burglar writes, what a great name. Just saw the Echo Base Network's Star Wars, a sequel trilogy documentary, and really enjoyed it. Love the clips that you were in. Have you heard of it or seen it? Oh, I have heard of it. Yes, I have not had a chance to sit down and see it. I've had a very, very difficult time just keeping up with my daily routine at all lately, especially with me trying to get the movie done at this point.
You're directing a movie, so you kind of have some stuff going on. It's
been difficult. So I do plan on it. Robert and I were actually talking about it the other day, say, oh, we should watch that at some point. But I have not had a chance to get around to watching it yet, just because I haven't had a chance, just to properly clip my toenails. TMI. Just a little thing there. But thank you for reminding me about it, my friend. All right, Star Singler writes, hey, John, longtime fan. Thank you so much, Star. I'll just say it. Who are we kidding? The IP is making the millions, not Kathleen. Sure, she's a great producer, but almost any competent producer behind Star Wars will make millions and millions upon millions. It's time for a change. Here's the thing. That's not true.
No.
And listen, I can give you a full laundry list. It's both in sports and entertainment. I remember, a great team like, oh, any coach could have coached that team and would have won championships. Really? Because there have been other teams that have been equally stacked with talent and they don't win championships. Everybody said, make Batman versus Superman. That's got 1.5 billion written all over it. Anybody could make if you got Batman versus Superman, that's just automatic. You can't credit anybody for that movie making 1.5 billion. What happened? It didn't get there. Justice League? Come on, that's the better version of Avengers, depending on who you ask. Of course it's going to make $2 billion. It's gonna bury Marvel. Anybody could step in and produce and direct those, and they're automatically going to... That's what we heard. And it's just always funny when you have something that has great success, right behind great success are people lining up to say anybody could have done it.
Mm-hmm. But not anybody did do it.
Yeah, but not everybody did. But again,
if anybody could do it, everybody would do it.
Right behind, again, write this down. Standing right behind anybody having great success is a lineup of people saying anybody could have done it. And we've seen, history has shown us time and time and time and time again that that's just not true. The Star Wars movies have never made this much money. Just inflation and everything. The Star Wars movies have never made this much money on a regular basis. So listen, as frustrated as I clearly am with Kathleen Kennedy, I'm not going to stick my head in the sand and pretend like there aren't victories there and there aren't successes. There clearly are. But again, I got to caution you, brother. I would say, again, behind every big success is a lineup of people ready to say anybody could have done it. When history has shown us over and over again, that's just not true. Anyway, Third Man 3 writes, normally it's better to halt production to retool the work before you start filming, but how do you let this project go this far given their past problems? Reads just like she's just now reading the scripts. I am 100%. See, I often have people say that to me. It's like, well, it's better to not start shooting if you're not sure what you got. I completely agree. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But you said the scripts were done in August. Mm-hmm. That was 5 months ago. And you just now you're figuring this out? Again, there's just too many inconsistencies here. And I agree with you, Thurman. It's like, if that's where have you been? Why weren't you reading these scripts over the past 5 months? Why is this suddenly a problem now? What's actually going on?
Or take a cue from Beyonce and don't announce anything. Just all of us, there's no reason to say the scripts are done. Nobody said, hey, we need to know if the scripts are done yet. Nobody asked that question. They were just like, hey, what's going on? And she's like,
I wouldn't doubt if somebody did ask. I wouldn't doubt it.
But what I mean is, keep it close to the vest. Say, you know what? we're still working on the scripts. They're looking great. We have to make some changes, or don't even go that far.
Just say, hey, here's Ewan McGregor. We're making an Obi-Wan series. We'll give you details when there's details to give.
Yeah.
Hang tight. I mean, yeah, there's something to be said there for sure. All right, next
Brevity.
Up. What's that?
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
As our friend Billy Shake said.
Chris Shorbis writes, films turning 10. Oh, these always make me feel old. How to Train Your Dragon's turning 10 this year?
Oh, wow.
Iron Man 2, Winter's Bone. Toy Story 3 was, you know what? I mentioned Cody was here. We were actually talking about this. I think it was his wife that said to me, he's like, do you know that Toy Story 3 turns 10 years old? I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're lying. And then it was like, wait a minute. No, it has been 10 years since Toy Story 3. Couldn't believe that. Inception, Despicable Me, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, The Town, The Social Network, Tangled, The King's Speech, 127 Hours, The Fighter, Tron Legacy, True Grit, and Black Swan.
We were just watching Tron Legacy the other night.
Really? What did you think of Tron Legacy? Because it's got a mixed reaction from people.
Okay.
I don't love it. I'll be honest with you. I didn't love it. It's got great music, though.
Here's the problem.
Here's the problem.
And this is not a problem with Tron Legacy, because it's the exact same problem that I have with Star Wars. I have a husband who can't tell me in 2 sentences what the movie is about because he's such a fucking dork nerd. Like,
I love Tom. I just gotta say, I love Tom.
We all love Tom.
Tom and I are kindred spirits, I think.
Yes, but when I walk into the kitchen and I see and I go, oh, Tron, I never saw that. Oh, but I'll watch it with you. What's the movie about? Just say, oh, it's about, it's whatever. I came up with this really great analogy that I forgot. But just give me like the nuts and bolts. Give me a 2-sentence answer of what this movie is about. And instead he's talking about the computer programming and the this ones and then the Sith Lord and then the ba-da-da-da. And I'm like, what?
Lord.
What are we? And all of a sudden I'm just like stirring my mac and cheese and I'm like, And then he goes, do you want to watch it? And I go, no, I'm good. I have no, like, you have sucked the juice out of any excitement that I had for this. And that is my issue with Star Wars, is that my husband has ruined it for me because he loves it so much. So now I have to covertly hide in a closet and get my iPhone and watch Star Wars like this because I can't let him know I'm going to watch it, because then otherwise he'll be like, King Dork Kool-Aid Man, let me mansplain to you Star Wars and tell you everything you need to know and love about the Ewoks.
That sounds like me. But I do have, I mean, Tom and I are a lot alike, but I actually am almost to a fault completely opposite. So like when I have you coming over for a movie, I'm like, you're like, what's it about? You'll see.
Yeah.
That's
what I want.
Yeah, but what's it about? Okay, you'll see.
I asked someone, what's Parasite about? And they said, I'm not going to tell you. Just watch it. Don't go in with any, because I love that. I am that person that I'm the person that was like, oh my God, Bruce Willis was dead the entire time. And I'm literally figuring this out as the credits are rolling. I love to be surprised. I love to discover. And I don't need all the minutia about it. You know, like, how do I make this car start? You put the key in here and you turn it and you press that pedal. I don't need to know about the pistons and the axles and everything that's firing. I don't need to know all that. So blame King Dork Tom for ruining Tron for me. Although I will say Bo Garrett, who I know, she's in my acting class and she's lovely, is phenomenal. For someone who has like 3 words in the entire movie, that's not easy. And she stays in character the entire time. And she looks damn good doing it. So go Bo Garrett.
Next up here, Sam O'Neill writes, hey, John, I sent in a message the other day about Michael Rosenbaum's podcast where he had Sean Gunn, and I remember that, and I love Sean Gunn. Just listened to the one with James Gunn, then followed it up with Karen Gillian, and bloody hell, they are interesting. Highly recommended. You know what? I've met Michael Rosenbaum just once, very briefly. Mm-hmm. But his podcast is actually kind of becoming a go-to podcast that you need. Yeah, it kind of is. And hearing that he had James, I didn't realize he had one with James on. I got to check that out because, I mean, James Gunn is obviously one of the more fascinating guys in the business right now. Ryan Lohner writes, what do you know? The guy who reviewed Witcher without watching it is the one critic who hates Picard. because it's not just constant spaceship fights, and calls anyone who dislikes or anyone who likes Discovery a quote-unquote Dumbo. And the response on his Twitter feeds are hilarious. Hey, listen, look, I don't know about that. Look, I gave this one guy a hard time because he's the critic for Entertainment Weekly. And he wrote this scathing review of The Witcher season 1. He had only seen less than half the episodes. He didn't even watch the episode, and he skipped a bunch. He watched a couple, then skipped ahead like 4 episodes, watched one more, and said, nah, I don't want to.
So he had access to them, because I understand sometimes the critics are not given all of the episodes in advance, and so they only have 1 or 2 episodes in order to gauge the entire season. But he had access to all of the episodes, and he just
chose to trash it without watching it. Meh. Yeah, I mean, that's too bad.
Lazy.
All right, Tristan Riera writes, hey, John, have you checked out Amazon's Treadstone series? I have not, but I've heard some pretty good things about it. Set after the Jason Bourne movies. I just finished season 1 and loved every second of it. Can't wait for season 2. I'm amazed at Amazon's ability to make solid series. Listen, this is a problem. This is a problem because we are getting, like, there is such good content coming out right now. And we got HBO giving it, and we got Netflix giving it. And Amazon, for the last couple of years, by the way, has been crushing it with a lot of their original content. And we're going to have HBO Max coming, and we're going to have Peacock coming, and we're going to have whatever else coming. I mean, there is such good stuff that it's getting really... Like, I was just talking the other day. There's a show called Pennyworth.
Yeah.
It's about
from It.
What's that?
From It.
No, not Pennywise.
Oh.
Pennyworth, who is Alfred from Batman's butler.
Yeah, okay.
Alfred Pennyworth, when he was younger. It follows him when he was younger in the UK, right? I saw the first 3 now it's an Epix show on that streaming service Epix, but they put up the first 3 episodes for free on Amazon. And I watched them, and I really liked them. The problem is,
you're not going to get
I can't sign up for another freaking service. And so there's this really great, I know it's a great show. I watched the first 3 episodes and I can't watch it because I just cannot let myself just sign up for every freaking thing. Right. So now we get all these things, and it'd be just nice if a couple of them just sucked. It would just be nice if a couple of these streaming services just flat out sucked.
And didn't have the... But I mean, think about it. HBO was like the network that had, they had Sex and the City. They had Sopranos. And did they have The Wire at the same time?
They had The Wire.
Yeah, so it's like but they didn't... They started out with just a few little nuggets, and maybe you weren't necessarily into Sex and the City, but you were really into Sopranos, and maybe you weren't into Sopranos, but you were really into Sex and the City. There was always at that time, the cable networks, we had to kind of do the same little dance of figuring out, is it worth it paying the extra? I think it was like an extra $50 a month or something.
To get the package?
To get the right package or whatever, just for that one show I want to watch. You just need to, you need to form a pact. Like, you can get, Peacock and HBO Max and Apple, and then Robert can get Epix and whatever. And then you just kind of go do a little round robin of going to people's houses.
Maybe. I mean, you got to do something because, damn, there's
a lot.
I can't wait for the Amazon Lord of the Rings thing. I mean, that's going to be crazy.
Right. I'm in that.
Shut up.
I'm going to be an elf.
No, you're lying.
I'm putting it into the universe. And anyone who wants to cast me as an elf.
No, you can't do that because
I know. You
don't even keep me up to date on the things you are in. Because I go to the fucking movies and all of a sudden, Anna and I was like, that's Aaron. And would have no idea you're even in the damn movie. I
assumed that my part was going to be cut out of the disaster artist because of the disastrous experience that I had on the set.
All right.
So, sorry, I'm about to pull in a Stephen Amell.
Okay, hold on a second. Where are we at here? We're at Blake, who writes, the thing about Star Wars is they have just scratched the surface. Much of the original trilogy is spent referring to the good old days when the Jedi were at the height of their powers. Show us that. The possibilities are endless. Listen, I am not for, in general, there are exceptions. I don't like the concept in any property of prequels. Covering ground we've already understand and know. But I've always said with Star Wars or with something like Game of Thrones, you go back hundreds or thousands of years, so there's really no connecting tie.
Right.
And you can really do anything you want. So that's why I've always been fascinated.
New characters, new story.
New stories, new circumstances, new worlds, new everything. I'm all for it. So that's why I've always been excited about the notion of exploring the world of the Old Republic. Do that. Or the rumor is right now that the next Star Wars movie will take place 400 years before the events of Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie. And I'm all for it because it gives us those opportunities. So I would like them to continue to move forward. But if you're going to go backwards, go really backwards, like really back it up. So we're not going to run into a teenage Han Solo and, a teenage. Next thing we're going to get is, Owen
Baby
and
Han.
Beru, the adventures of Owen and Beru. Like, I don't want to see that. Go really far back.
It's like what we were talking about earlier, having the DNA of a world, but tell a separate story.
Yep. All right, let's see here. Matsive Jada writes. Oh, no, sorry. Yes, Matsive Jada writes. Office UK is better than The Office USA. You know what? I used to feel that way, too.
And then you saw Ricky Gervais host too many Golden Globes and you were like, I'm over it.
No, that wasn't it. It was just that I remember when I was like through the first 3 seasons of The Office, I'm like, you know what? I'll say I think I prefer the UK one. But as the series kept progressing and I just got more and more into these characters, I switched sides. No, I think I actually prefer the US version. But if you haven't seen the original UK version, it's brilliant.
Does the original UK version have a Stanley? Because this curmudgeon Stanley is my favorite.
I love all of those. I love Creed. I love all of them. Okay, Juicy Smollett. Justice for Juicy, man. Justice for Juicy. I saw Bad Boys 3 and I loved it. I can't wait for the 4th film. Also, with the success of the film, do you think we'll see a Martin Lawrence comeback? As long as there's no Big Mama's House 4, I'm cool with it. I don't know if we're going to see a Martin Lawrence comeback. I don't know about that. I didn't love Bad Boys 3, but I'll tell you what.
I thought you liked it.
I liked it way more than I thought I would.
Right. Okay, that's what I read.
It was better than I thought it would be. And to the point where I came out of it going, you know what? If you do a 4th one, I'm there.
Do.
Like, if you do, in fact, do a 4th one, I'll be there. Okay. It's got charm. Listen, I'm not going to give anything away, but for those of you who've seen the movie and know what I'm talking about, there is a really tender moment in the movie that involves, and you guys will know what I'm talking about if you've seen it, that involves Will Smith's beard. There's a beautifully tender moment in this movie that you giggle at, but your heart warms at it, that involves Will Smith. If you haven't seen this movie, you have no idea what I'm talking about, because I didn't spoil the thing, but it involves Will Smith's beard. That was actually like, oh my God, they actually worked in a really good tender moment in here. That made me feel good. So yeah, I didn't think it was great, but it was way better than I thought it would be. Because I thought the trailers were bad. I thought the trailers were quite bad.
Right, yeah, they didn't really do that.
It turned out to be pretty entertaining. I got to give it. Okay, Fabian Vegas writes, hey, John and crew, about to do a double feature tonight with Bad Boys for Life and Just Mercy. Another double feature including Just Mercy. 2 very different movies, I know. What are some of your favorite double features to do and some of the favorites you've been to? I'm not really a double feature guy a lot, but I will tell you, some of you may have heard the story before. One of the most memorable double features I ever did. It was me, Denis Zen, and John Schnepp, the late, great John Schnepp. And we decided, because apparently we hated ourselves, we decided to do a double feature of Jupiter Ascending, and I think it was the one with Jeff Bridges, I think it was called Seventh Son.
Okay.
Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending with Magic Mike Boy. Channing Tatum.
Yes.
It was, I remember, because Schnepp just kept laughing at me. Because, especially in Jupiter Ascending, and you never see me do this, I was literally rocking back and forth, covering my face, going, oh my God, this is so bad. Like, and I don't like to be that guy in theaters, but Schnepp is sitting beside me and he's just howling. Yeah, we went to go see Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending back to back. And that is probably the most memorable double feature. We just had a great time being abused, visually abused so bad by these 2 truly bad movies. But
I saw at a drive-in, actually, the last double feature that I went to in Cape Cod. What's the animated film with Bing Bong?
Inside Out.
It was Inside Out.
I love that movie.
Oh, loved it. And I was sobbing. Like I was having one of those really ugly cries, you know, the cry that you haven't had when you're like, oh my God, it's been a while since I've cried and I clearly needed to get something out. Like I was like unleashing demons. I was crying so hard. And then that was followed by Jurassic World. Was that the first one? First new one?
The first new one was Jurassic World.
And I was so annoyed and angry. And I was like, this is so stupid. And I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it.
I like Jurassic World.
And I was so mad that I went from seeing this beautiful animated film to just seeing what I thought was just garbage. I was so angry.
It's the funny things. Double features are funny things. All right. Let's see. Ethan Hunt writes that there's been quite a few mentions by name in recent canon about a Jedi in the High Republic who was kicked out of the Order because he was a troublemaker. Then we have unconfirmed news that the next series is taking place in that time. Coincidence or foreshadow? You cannot take away the concept that it could be foreshadow. It could be. However, with the new trilogy, seeing that the current regime at Lucasfilm seems to have no ability to plan actually things out far ahead, I'm going to guess it's a coincidence, but could be. Oh,
bless you.
It could be indeed a foreshadow. It's a really interesting thing, Ethan. I've heard some other people talking about that, so let's keep our eyes on that. It's a really good observation. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, on a personal note, have you decided when you want to retire to Canada, and will you still do your show when you do? Okay, so
you're not that old.
No, but like just go back to Canada. Like,
why would you go back to Canada?
Because it's home.
I understand a million reasons why you go back to Canada, especially these days.
It's the plan is to go back to Canada.
Well, it's not Anne's home.
It is going to be.
Does she know that?
We talked about it before we got married. That we knew that at some point because.
Can I come too?
Come live on the Campea Ranch with us?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. When I came to LA, the plan was just to come here. I even kept my apartment.
Well, yeah, everybody,
Came for 1 year, met Anne, fell in love, ended up being here. But the plan was always that after a few years, we're going to uproot, we're going to go back to Canada. The thing was probably the timeline is probably going to be shortly after we decide to have our first kid. So we'll probably have our first kid here, probably be here for just a little bit, but maybe before they start school.
Oh, an anchor baby?
Is that what you're calling them? But maybe
that's
just before.
Not my term. I did not come up with that.
I've never heard the phrase, but maybe
really?
just before it starts school, we'll up and go. But it's been complicated because like Anne's career at Hasbro has like really done well, and she's doing very well over there. And you know, she just completed her second master's degree and all that kind of stuff. And so relatively soon, it's not going to be within the next year, but probably within the next 3 to 4 years. And yes, unless something miraculous changes, like my movie makes me $25 million, which it's not, because that's not what happens to documentaries. But unless something really weird happens where I come into some kind of massive windfall, yes, I will still be doing the show just from that. Look, the great thing about my job is I can do it from anywhere in the world.
Sure.
As long as I got a good enough internet connection, I can do it from anywhere in the world. So
we need to be on the lookout for a baby bump. And then at that point, when I see a baby bump, I need to start looking for a new job. I mean, I'm always looking for a new job. I'm an actor. That's what we always do.
You can Skype in, like Rob Skypes in.
Yeah, but the reason I'm in the studio is because clearly my Skype doesn't work.
Well, yeah, yesterday didn't. I mean, I don't know if it's because we tried a 3-way or because, well, you know what I mean. Because we tried to do it with. That sounded worse. Because we tried it with us 3 individuals Skyping all at the same time. I don't know. Just the video quality wasn't great.
And Chris Carr was building IKEA furniture.
While we were doing I know. What was that?
That's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I have to come into the studio. I can't read the comments because if I read the comments, first of all, I see sometimes people say mean things and I'm way too sensitive. But more so, I was dying because she didn't mute when she was trying to like chase after her dogs and get them to shut up. And so all you hear is like, boom, 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 boom. And somebody was like, is someone installing carpet? What is that? And people were losing their shit. They were like, what is that noise? There's noise going on. Someone's building IKEA. And I was trying not to laugh. I had to actually mute my microphone so that you couldn't hear me laughing.
And I had no idea about it.
And then I was just not even paying attention to what you were saying because I was just reading the comments. I was like, I can't do this. I'm not a multitasker.
So last night I get a hold of Aaron. I said, look, would you mind actually coming in? And look, it is... The reason I haven't been doing from here is because it's more crowded in here right now, and then like
there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff like all over the place in here, but it's just like, yeah, would you mind coming in tomorrow? And you were like, I'd actually prefer to.
Yeah.
Which is great because you brought Joey Bishop with you, so I'm perfectly happy. Okay, let's fly through a few more here.
Okay.
Baby Boy 8603 writes, my top 10 2019 films. Number 1, Us. I wanted to like Us more. I still liked it. I enjoyed it, but to me, it just wasn't as good as his previous film. It was Get Out. I just love Get Out on another level. But anyway, number 2, John Wick 3, so good. Number 3, Joker. Number 4, Avengers Endgame. Number 5, Dr. Sleep. Really underrated film.
Yep.
Really underrated film.
Like that.
Number 6, Knives Out. Number 7, Crawl. Another underrated kind of surprise, jumped out of nowhere and surprised you movie. I love Crawl. Number 8, Ready or Not. Another one of those movies just like Crawl. Have you seen Ready or Not?
I haven't. What is that?
It's okay. You probably saw a trailer. It's the little horror film that takes place in this house, and you'd swear it stars Margot Robbie, but it's not Margot Robbie. I think it's Hugo Weaving's daughter, Samara Weaving.
Oh, Samara Weaving. Yeah. I know her. Yeah.
You know her?
Yeah. I mean, like
we're not of her, right?
No, I know her. Like,
really?
She and I have the same manager, and so every time he has a party, she's always there. And so I've talked to her a bunch of times. And I remember she showed me pictures on her phone from the movie that she just did, and I was like, "Oh, that looks pretty cool." And then I saw her on Billboard. I was like, "Oh, that's the movie she was doing."
Ready or Not.
She's lovely.
And she's great in it, and it's a really
good. I'm very happy. I'm very happy that the film did well.
So sorry, I should keep going here. Number 9, Dolomite Is My Name. That was great. Number 10, Always Be My Maybe. I
know you loved it.
That's when you and I really disagreed. I really liked Always Be My Maybe. It did not work for you, though. You and I had several conversations about this movie.
I wish it did. It didn't. I wanted to like it. I just found it really forced. And the performances I found really forced. And I love all those actors.
Right.
That's what drove me crazy about it. So I was like, I like all of you. The only scene that I really loved was the Keanu Reeves scene, because it was just so effortless for him. And I wanted it to be as effortless for everybody else. I felt like the jokes were just a little forced.
He's so good. All right, good. Ethan Hunt writes that same book, going back to the High Republic era. That same book that mentions the Jedi troublemaker from the High Republic also foreshadows Rey's lineage in the Rise of Skywalker with prophecy: the child born from darkness will bring back the light. And that book came out almost a year before Episode 9 hit theaters. Again, I mean, I don't know if that planned from anything, because, obviously JJ, it's been well documented, JJ's plan was for her to be nobody, and Colin Trevorrow's script was following through on JJ's thing. Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9 script had her being nobody, but that was an important thing. But they just reacted to all the fan backlash, and they were like, oh, let's just do the things that the fans said they want to do. They wanted Rey to be related to somebody. Let's make her related to somebody. It was so frustrating. Amir writes, I wasn't a fan of The Rise of Skywalker. The W's not usually put in there. But I just...
How did I get that? Sorry.
It's very good. Usually because Skywalker is one word. But I wasn't a fan of The Rise of Skywalker, but I just seen it with my kids, 9 and 10, and they loved it. And it reminded me that they also love the prequels and the original trilogy. They don't view it as critical as we adults do. They just love the Star Wars world, and that's great. That is great. Mm-hmm. Remember, children that age also love Barney the dinosaur. But no, it's true, because you know what? I often look, everybody knows I'm not a fan of the prequels, right? But there are a lot of people that I interact with all the time that it's like the prequels for them, that was their introduction to the world of Star Wars. Yeah. And it hit them on a different level, and it works for them. Not a ton of them, but there are people like that. And I think that to me is one of the great highlights of the pure subjectivity of this art. It's like, there are going to be things that I love that you hate. There's going to be things that I hate that you love. And at the end of the day, it's like, just because I hate it doesn't mean I want you to hate it. I want you to love everything, every piece of entertainment that I hate, I hope you love. And vice, and everything like that. And I think the Star Wars universe becomes a microcosm of that. That even within the world of Star Wars fans, there are things that us Star Wars fans like, and there are things that other Star Wars fans don't like. Mm-hmm. And it's a great example of that. And I think that's a really neat thing, Amir. First of all, you're clearly doing parenting right. Clearly, you're doing parenting right, introducing your kids to Star Wars. So that is awesome. Good on you, sir. If there was an award for that, I would nominate you for it. All right. Suthius writes, Unmouth her fiend. I was just trying to give her CPR. Oh my goodness, LOL. This show is great. Like you, I'm not a big fan of DC/Marvel animated shows and movies, but Harley Quinn is very entertaining. I was not ready for it. Kuko is great as Harley. Oh my God, you're right. You know, honestly, it's one of those things, like when I remember I told you Cody and Allie were here for the week. The very first thing I did when they got
you
here,
out of house and home.
we sat down and I made them watch the first episode of Harley, and then they were instantly hooked on it. It's only like 20-minute episodes. If you didn't have to leave, I would sit your ass down and make you watch the first episode of Harley, because then you'd probably be one step ahead in the geek sphere than your husband is for a change.
Well, then maybe I'll go home and watch it today.
Well, you'd have to have the service. You'd have to
what
the
service
DC streaming service.
Oh my gosh, right.
Yeah, that's why I was going to make you. That's why I was going to make you watch it here.
Oh, got it.
All right, let's see. Suthius then writes, Mr. Campea, I thought I'd share my concern with tipping the other day. Cinema Review stated that he did not send it. Yeah, that is something that we're going to look into when we're trying to figure out how to get that kind of thing. Again, that's the better type of message to email me, but there you go. Rich from Queens writes, sends in a really large super chat. Thank you so much, Rich, for supporting the channel on that level. Hey, John, looking forward to The Matrix 4. With no Agent Smith and Neo's story arc seem to be complete, I'll ask you this over/under. 25%. Neo is the main villain in the movie. Would it make you excited for the film if it was confirmed to be true? That's an interesting... That is an interesting notion. Okay, let me say this. I will take under 25%, but I wouldn't take under 10. That's a fascinating idea. I mean, it harkens back to the whole Batman thing. You either die the hero or you see yourself live long enough to become the villain.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. So but I'm still
wondering
take under 25%.
if I want to see Keanu Reeves as a villain. Have we seen Keanu Reeves as a villain?
I'm trying to think.
I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying I don't know.
Well, to Agent Smith, Keanu Reeves was the villain from his point of view, from a certain point of view.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, Rich, I'm now fascinated with this idea. I'm fascinated with this idea because I'm not really excited about Matrix 4 because I love the first Matrix, but the Matrix things declined. I haven't been a fan of the stuff the Wachowski, generally speaking, I have not been a fan of what the Wachowskis have done since Matrix, so I'm not really stoked for this. But if we found out that Neo becomes the villain...
That would be pretty exciting.
I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I'd be fascinated by that. So
it's an intriguing idea.
I'll still take the under on 25% that it actually happens. Over under 25%.
Yeah, definitely under.
Okay, I'm going to take the under as well. All right. My farts don't stink, right?
Yes, they do.
So, with Vulture in Morbius, which, by the way, we do not officially know, with Vulture in Morbius, any chance that is a different Earth in the trailer and Vulture is jumping around, putting a Sinister Six team together? I know it seems crazy, but I just can't see Sony showing him in the trailer without it being a misdirect. So, here's the interesting thing. Somebody pointed this out to me. The new Morbius trailer came out. And it's great. It's a great trailer. And obviously one of the things that besides the Spider-Man mural on the wall, the appearance of Michael Keaton at the end. Of course, everybody wants to jump to the conclusion, oh my gosh, it's Vulture. And it's like, well, remember, nobody's saying it's Vulture. But then somebody pointed out to me, John, look at the clothes he's wearing at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming. And now look at him in the Morbius trailer again. And it's like... It's the same clothes. So I'm like, okay, look, it still needs to be reconfirmed here that Sony, nobody has officially confirmed that Michael Keaton is playing, Vulture. Nobody in Morbius. Nobody has officially said it's the same guy, blah, blah. But there is a lot of anecdotal evidence kind of pointing towards that. No,
Or someone in wardrobe made a massive mistake.
A big faux pas. Or they did it on purpose to get everybody talking, which wouldn't be a bad idea. But no, I don't think we have him jumping around between multiple dimensions, putting together a Sinister Six. I don't think that's what's happening here. But at the same time, something's happening here. So maybe what you're proposing isn't all that big of a stretch. So I still don't think so. But I'm also not going to fall out of my chair in shock if it turns out that that's what it is. So that's where this Morbius trailer has led us, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Proud Flatulence, who's probably the same guy. Right.
Wow.
Every time I watch the climactic battle at the end of Endgame, the more I start to dislike it. It's epic and exciting, but the fan service is hitting me in the face more and more. Return of the Jedi, Return of the King, Helm's Deep feel more organic and spontaneous. Okay, here's what I would say to that. Yeah, the final end battle sequence of Endgame is just loaded with empty fan service. It really is. Empty in terms of narrative meaning, but gave us great big pops. Like the whole... What was it called? A-Force scene where you watched Endgame with us, right? So the big battle where all the female heroes end up in the same spot and they get a thing. So it's like, well, that seems kind of unlikely, but
right.
It was fan service. The fact that, a lot of different things happen in that scene that are pure fan service, but gave big pops. Like the audience had big pops, right? My argument though is that movies are designed, I believe, for the first impression. Mm-hmm. There are movies that have great rewatchability, and that's great when they do. But take a movie like Borat, right? Mm-hmm. Borat, my first viewing, one of my favorite movie watching experiences of all time. I laughed the hardest. I thought the hardest. It was just amazing.
It's shock value.
It doesn't hold up to multiple viewings because everything that's coming is a blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it was designed for that first experience. So I agree with you, Proud. Like the more I watch the end battle scene, the more and more the fan service kind of non-logic stands out to me. But none of that takes away from that first time that you're in the theater and you're seeing this orgy of awesome popping up on screen with this incredible battle. Look, I will take all the fan service nonsense in the world for that one shot of Captain America standing alone, tightening the shield, facing down Thanos and his entire army. I mean, look, can you see the hair on my arm standing up? Like, it's...
you will.
Oh my God. And yeah, when Elizabeth Olsen, that "oh, you will" line, give me a break. Like, none of that can take away from that first experience.
Sure.
And so I agree. It dilutes over time, but it doesn't take away that first experience still. Do you have any kind of movie that's like that for you, that you just had this beautiful first experience with, and upon maybe watching it more, it doesn't maybe stand up as much?
You know what? I'm a movie is not coming into my head, but the experience of like Disneyland or Disney World.
I still go like every 4 weeks.
I go all the time and I love going, but there is something about like the first time that you see it, you're like, oh my God, this is a whole, like, I don't know. That's just what's popping into my head. I can't think of a film right now, but I'm sure I will.
All right, let's try to race through these next few before you got to go here. Let's see here. NR99 writes, one of my favorite films growing up was The Mask starring Jim Carrey. Me too. Listen, Cameron Diaz in The Mask. I don't know. Career. What's that?
It started her career, like catapulted her.
It absolutely did. And I'm telling you what, like there are certain movies with a certain actor or a certain actress where they just look so good in a certain movie, it stands the test in time. But I think male or female, I've never seen a human being look as viscerally attractive as Cameron Diaz did in The Mask. And there's a lot of movies with some very good looking actors, some very good looking actresses and all that kind of stuff. But Cameron Diaz in The Mask. Woo! That was... I mean, it truly did elicit the Jim Carrey line, "smokin'."
Right.
I mean, that was something. So anyway, I should probably finish reading the question because I didn't.
I was wondering where we were going with this.
Very disappointed it never got a sequel. Can you see it being rebooted one day?
But it did.
It is a matter
Son
of
of the Mask in 2005 with Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah, it did indeed get a sequel. We all wish it didn't get a sequel. But no, that would have been one that I told. But they simply did. The paychecks that Jim Carrey started pulling around that time made having Jim Carrey in one of your movies very, very cost prohibitive. And they just couldn't do it. But I would have been down for another Mask. I totally would have been down for another Mask at the time. But again, we were talking about the Airwolf technology earlier.
Yeah.
Like a part of the Mask was they put some things visually on screen that we had never seen before.
Right.
Today, that's old news, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It would be interesting.
I don't know if the Mask would hold up. I would need to go back and watch that.
I'm always up for going back to watch it again. All right, next up, NR99 writes, if The Mask were to get rebooted, I loved it based off the original comic, kind of like Deadpool-style film, but more dark and gritty. And listen, I do think in today's environment, that is something you could reboot. I think you could reboot that. And NR99, I think the way you're describing it is probably the most feasible way to do it. It's probably the way that would make sense. So, because you can't...
But I would also like for them to wait. Like, I hate seeing a reboot of something when the actors who originated the role are still working actors. You know, I want you to reboot something when all of a sudden people like for example, Parenthood, not Parenthood, sorry, 30-something, the TV show. A girlfriend of mine is going into audition for it, and she's like, yeah, it's this pilot called 30-something. I was like, 30-something isn't a pilot? It was one of the most successful television shows of the 80s. She had no idea because she is of an age where she would have no idea. So all of a sudden, this idea is being introduced to a whole new generation. I feel like The Mask is so relatively recent. Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz are still, they're not young enough to be able to do it.
Over 25 years old. It's quarter of a century old.
Oh, stop it.
It is over a quarter of a century old.
No, I mean, it's not that long. It's not that long.
It's pretty long.
No, I think that there should be a minimum mandatory 40 to 50 year waiting period before we get a reboot. Let an entire generation age out of knowing about there's too many people that know about The Mask. Too many comparisons to be made.
I think my rules for a reboot have always been, can it benefit from modern technology? Mm-hmm. Can you say the majority of the current movie-going audience hasn't seen the original? And I think at 25 years, I think the majority of the average movie-going audience probably hasn't seen The Mask at this point. And is there a new angle to take? And I think what NR99 was just saying about kind of going Deadpoolish, going kind of by the original content, it's a fresh look at it. It'll feel like a very different movie experience with new technology. And I mean, I know you say it's not that long ago, but it's 26 years.
I don't think that's long.
Oh, it's kind of long.
I don't think it's that long. But also, okay, Mission Impossible. Who was the guy that starred in the original Mission Impossible?
Oh, I can't remember his name.
But yeah. I remember at the Mission Impossible premiere, there was an MTV reporter. Her name was Kennedy, and she was interviewing him. And she was like, oh my God, you're an icon. You're such a legend. So what are you doing here? Like, why would you want to come to the premiere of this show? And he was so offended. And he was like, I was the star of the original. How fucking dare you ask me that, you little twit? And rightly so, he was offended. But it was like, that was the level, that was how long it had been since there had been an original, was that even a reporter was like, I didn't even know. I mean, now that's just her not doing her job. But even still, it was just like, no one knew that. A lot of people didn't even know that there was an original. You say The Mask to anyone, whether they've seen it or not, they're going to go, oh, the Jim Carrey movie.
Sure.
Like anyone who's like...
But look, they've rebooted Spider-Man twice, and we're really glad that they have.
I don't see those as reboots.
They are literally reboots.
They're just like, we're just going to tell the same story. I feel like comic books... Well, Mask is I don't know.
By the way, I got to tell you a quick something, just because I know it's going to terribly upset you and freak you out. So, Aaron... Here's a little thing about me, and I've been meaning to mention this to Aaron, just because this is a little trivial thing.
If you tell me that you have a pet tarantula in here,
I do not.
I will leave and I will never come back.
No pet spiders. So Aaron was very upset and disturbed by the fact that I don't fold my clothes.
Oh yeah,
like, I do laundry.
Disgusting.
I just grab socks and underwear, toss them into a drawer, and like shirts, I'll just leave them piled wherever. You know what I've done the last couple of weeks?
You've been folding your clothes?
Oh, no. I do my laundry, and then I've just left them in the dryer for the week, and I just go to the dryer and pull out clothes as I need them.
When I was in college and I finally got an apartment that had a washer and dryer in the apartment, which is a big deal, like not having to collect quarters and whatever, I did that, and I found it so liberating.
It's awesome. However, I have to when I do that, I got to make sure I time it to get them out before Ann does her laundry next. Because I was sitting downstairs the other week, and like I didn't realize Ann was upstairs doing her laundry, and I guess she was getting ready to turn over. She says, "Get your clothes out of that fucking dryer. It's like, whoops, sorry, I'm running up the stairs.
That reminds me of living in the dorm when you'd like wait and wait and wait. And then the second that the laundry buzzer goes, you just take somebody else's laundry and just dump them like on the dirty dryer next to it. You know, like, somebody get your fucking laundry.
Okay, you know what?
I have to go.
We've run out of time here, guys.
Listen, for life.
Av, Callie, Ed, Minty, Casinema, all that kind of stuff. Don't worry. You know, we're going to start with your questions. I'm not going to make you wait till Monday. I'll do a companion video this weekend. It'll be a short one, but we've just run out of time here because Aaron's got to get going. But listen, guys, thank you so much for being here today and being part of the show. This was fun. Aaron, it's always awesome to have you. In the meantime, where can people find you and little Joey Bishop online?
Oh, yeah. You can go online and find me at Aaron L. Cummings on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want a little shout out for you or someone that you love, you can find me on cameo.com/Aaron Cummings or Aaron L. Cummings. I can't remember. Try them both. But also Monday night, if you want to see me using my traditional Texas accent and being very loud and practicing some of my comedy chops, check out 911 Lone Star, which will be on Fox Monday night. And it's just the opening scene of the episode, but it was directed by Jennifer Lynch, David Lynch's daughter, and she's a phenomenal director. And it was really fun, and I loved it. And I've seen it. It's funny, and I'm excited. So 911 Lone Star Monday night.
All right. Thanks a lot for being here. And thank you guys to all of you for being here and making today's show a part of your day. And a special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you very much for that. Guys, you made it to the end of another week. Congratulations. May you have a tremendously wonderful, fun, exciting, or relaxing, whatever you need, weekend ahead of yourselves. I think we're going to try to do a open mic tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure, but I think we're going to try to do that. But otherwise, we will see you back here again on Monday, everybody. Guys, have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of the people around you. My name is John Campea, everybody. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.